What's for dinner?
Hey everyone, I'm Chef Zee and welcome back to my channel, Chef Zee Cooks. Today I have an exciting and delicious recipe for you guys. We are making Sopa de Res con fideo, and that translates to a soup made with grass-fed beef. At least I'm using grass-fed beef with some thin noodles. Now, this is one of my mother's all-time favorite soup recipes, so I'm super excited to share with you guys. Now, get a little closer because I have a secret. This soup is actually like a mini sancocho. Yes, you heard that correctly. This soup tastes just like the heavy hitter sancocho. However, it has some key differences. Number one, we're only using one type of meat. And number two, we're actually using less root vegetables. Now, like a lot of the traditional recipes here on my channel, just know that there are a million and one ways of making this recipe. And throughout the video, I'm gonna be sharing some optional vegetables that you can add and even some substitutions. Like for example, if you did not want to make this recipe with beef, you can actually also use chicken. Now, I'll be sharing so much more, and without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the recipe.
Making this dish is actually pretty simple, and I personally love using some grass-fed beef that has a good amount of marbling, but I also like to go in and trim the fat just so that my soup doesn't come out oily later on. So to kick things off, we're actually going to make a very simple sofrito by combining a white Spanish onion along with some fresh garlic, and you can add as little or as much garlic as you want. And to that, we're also going to be adding a green bell pepper, and I'm also going to add some kosher salt, and I'm going to add about roughly 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt. And then to that, we're also going to be adding some olive oil just to help everything blend together. Now, you can use your favorite food processor or even your blender to blend everything together. I'm using this little mini food processor by Ninja because it is great and it does a bunch of other things and it doesn't take up too much room. So if you're definitely interested, I'll have it linked down below. Now I'm going to blend everything until it becomes a paste. Now, because I have a smaller food processor, I have to do everything in 1 to 2 batches, but depending on the size of your food processor or your blender, you may be able to get everything blended in one go. So to that, I'm going to add the rest of the onions and the rest of the peppers. Now, I will say that if you use a red onion, a red pepper, or even an orange pepper, your sofrito is going to come out a different color, and that's totally fine because there's honestly no right or wrong way to make this marinade. So feel free to use some of your favorite ingredients. I'm going to blend that together just one more time, and this happens really quickly, which is why I love this little device. Now, as you can see right here, I actually blended everything until it was a paste. And I did that on purpose because I find that when everything is blended, the soup comes out really nice and rich and even a little bit thicker. I don't like to see the pieces of onions floating around in the soup, but if you don't mind, you can definitely leave the onion chunks in the soup later on. So now we're going to add the marinade to our meat, and you want to make sure to get everything in there because there is so much flavor. And now we're also going to add some kosher salt. Now you want to be fairly generous when you're seasoning the meat because this is going to help flavor the soup. I'll also say that you can use your favorite seasoning salt, whether that's some adobo or even a chicken bouillon cube. I'm going to add some Dominican oregano, and then I'm going to mix everything until it's well combined. And you want to make sure that the meat is coated in this delicious marinade. I'm going to add a sour orange. Now, my sour orange was fairly juicy, so I only had to use about half of it, and you're going to see just how much juice it had. Now, if you don't have any sour oranges at your local grocery store, don't worry because you can use either a fresh lime or a fresh orange or even both for your own sour orange. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add some more kosher salt, and I'm going to mix everything until it's well combined. Now, you do wanna let the meat marinate for a minimum of 20 minutes, or you can even let it marinate overnight. It's definitely up to you. So once I've mixed everything and that meat is beautifully coated in that delicious marinade, I'm actually going to set it aside, and now I'm going to start making the soup. Now to my Dutch oven pot, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of oil because remember, we don't want the soup to come out oily. And now I'm going to add the meat. And I want to make note that I am browning everything on medium-high heat because I want the meat to develop as much color as possible. Now keep in mind that the meat is also going to release its own juices, so it's not going to crisp up and brown as nicely as it usually does when our marinade is a little bit on the drier side. So after a few minutes, we just want to go in and we want to mix everything just to make sure that everything is browning on both sides. Now I will warn you, your house is going to start smelling amazing because all of those aromas are going to start filling up the kitchen. Now after about 3 to 5 minutes, I just like to go in and toss and turn it once again, and you're going to see that the marinade is actually going to start darkening, which is great because this is also what's going to give the soup some beautiful color. And now we're going to add roughly about 12 cups of water, and you definitely want to have some extra water just sitting around just in case the soup needs a little bit more water from it drying up. I'm going to mix it yet again, and then I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to let the soup boil for 1 hour and 20 minutes. Now, depending on how much meat you have, this may be a little bit less or a little bit more, so I recommend that you check it from time to time. And after 1 hour and 20 minutes, I'm gonna go in and I'm going to add my fresh yuca, along with some chopped celery. Now, if you have picky kids, feel free to cut the celery in some bigger chunks and pieces so that it's easy to pick out later on. I'm also going to add some carrots, and I'm going to mix everything until it's well combined. Now, I do want to add these vegetables first because they take a little bit longer to soften and cook. So this is where we start layering flavor, and this is where our soup also starts to change in flavor. And then after those 20 minutes, I'm now going to add the diced potatoes along with one of my all-time favorite ingredients, which is some diced auyama, which is kamboka squash. Now, these root vegetables don't take as long to soften and cook as the yuca and the carrots, which is why I like to add them 20 minutes later. Because if I add them all at the same time, then the potatoes and the auyama are actually going to soften too much and they're going to turn into mush. Now, as you can see, my soup dried up, so I went ahead and I added an additional 2 cups of water along with a generous handful of some cilantro. Now, because I'm adding the cilantro at the very end, it's really going to give it some vibrant flavor, which is why I didn't add it early on when I made my sofrito. We're gonna let that boil for an additional 15 to 20 minutes, and as you can see, the soup is really coming together, and at the very end, I'm going to add some fideos. Now, the fideos do not take a long time to cook. They maybe take about 5 minutes because it's essentially crushed up angel hair pasta, which doesn't take long to cook. And after 5 minutes, I just like to go in, stir it, and I actually like to turn off the flame. I like to let it sit for another 5 minutes. I pick out the big chunks of cilantro, and then my soup is pretty much ready to eat and serve. So there you guys have it. That's my recipe for Sopa de Res con fideo. Comment down below and let me know how much you like this recipe. And until next week, I'm Chef Zee y Buen Provecho.
Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Now, before you leave, I just want to know, how are you guys going to be jazzing up this recipe? Comment down below. Are you going to be adding some corn? Are you going to be adding some plátano? Maybe you want more potatoes, or maybe you don't want any fideos at all. I'm curious to know. Let's chat in the comment section. Definitely subscribe to my channel so that you're always in the know when I post an all-new video. And don't go too far, because if you're hungry and you want some more tasty recipes to share with your friends and family, click right here.